Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the conversation, the third in our series on HR for Dynamics. I'm joined by my great colleague and friend, Jason Fallows from Hubdrive. Jason, good morning to you, sir. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning, Ian. Always a pleasure to be joining you for our webinar series. And as you mentioned, good friends, good partners. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right, Jason, well, I say, hopefully you've caught up with those two sessions, but if not, I'm sure that the lovely Katie will make sure that those links are available to anybody that's catch up on this on Catch Up. And Jason, this morning we're talking about employee administration and HR. And I know it's a subject dear to both of our hearts. It's fantastic, exciting. Matter of fact, there's lots of really interesting and exciting elements in this subject. And more importantly, about how costs and compliance and what have you can be rolled into the approach that you take around your HR platform and administration that goes behind that. So I think any initial comments you want to make around that, Jason, before we move into the topic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the employee administration portion of any HR management solution is the workhorse, let's say, that makes taking care of the employees and taking care of the number one resource of any organization key, right? Employee satisfaction today is more important than ever. I think we've talked about that a little bit in our previous discussions or previous sessions of this webinar series. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to kind of go through it, talk about it, see the things where an organization can streamline, can do less of those manual processes, and yeah, happy to be here and have a talk about it.
But actually, just a comment from I did a presentation last night, and one of the co-presenters was talking about how statistics have come to light in the last few weeks, where 35% of employees said that if they moved into a new organisation and they didn't like the technology that was being provided to them to operate, both front end and back end, they would probably leave during their probation period. Now, I thought that was a really interesting topic. So you imagine somebody as an employee, HR employee coming into the business, don't like the process, they're going to move on. But also the staff, the employees themselves, and this guy actually making the presentation said, I was sent some documents the other day by a solicitor for a house sale, and I was told to print them out and sign them. He said, I don't own a printer. I don't physically own a printer. I had to get on with my colleagues and my chum say, anybody within a 5-mile radius I know own a printer, for goodness sake. Oh, it was a real eye opener for me. But I think, if we think in that context around administration HR, it is a big issue. It's a big issue. Okay, so what we're looking at here now is this little schema of HR for Microsoft Dynamics 365. And I throw this up purely because, if we just look at each one of those 12 tiles there, administration is written all through it, but also digitization of administration is written through every single one of those. And I think we're going to pick out some of those in particular as we go through that and look at it. But perhaps some of the ones we're not going to dive into in particular is things like self-service and time and attendance, because we talked about that before. So please go and have a look at those conversations we've had around that. Leave and absence again, link back to my point just now. This is about enabling your employees to book leave and absence on their phones, because that's where people live these days, or at least on their tablets and what have you, and be able to manage all that. But also then the administration of that in the back end, making that as simple as possible. We've had that conversation before. So I think in particular, we're going to start looking at later on about particularly around reporting and talent management and what have you. So I just want to throw that up there because I think administration goes right across the whole piece there. Any thoughts on that at all, Jason?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously administration's a big part of what an HR department does, right? And the days of, like you mentioned with your colleague there that needed to print out a document, those are things really that could be in the past. Number one, if you're doing digital signature of documentation, you automatically have that data and it comes back in an electronic format. It has to be stored someplace. It has to be GDPR compliant. How long do I have to hold on to this particular document, and how do I set it up against the employee that had to sign these documents? I know a little bit later we'll talk about paperless, but each organization has a different definition of going paperless. But things such as the old days with, a folder on each employee sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere taking up space, those are really things that we can just go away from. Not to mention when audits happen by external organizations, for NGOs, things of that nature, that data should be available to just say, hey, come sit down at my desk. We'll take a look on this screen. Everything's there, right? And those are things that just are, a customer has to have those things in this particular time frame, or they really lose money. They have triple, double effort in manual processes, and this really takes care of that.
Well, absolutely to your point there, Jason. I had a case in point yesterday, as you know, so I contacted you about it, where we had a major, large corporation across 3 continents, and their HR system is still entirely paper-based. Paper-based.
Crazy.
Yeah, okay, there's the odd Excel spreadsheet kick around somewhere, but fundamentally, it was paper-based. So you had interesting conversations then about, oh, well, we need to keep this paper because we need to be able to track people's reviews and 360 reviews. You go, well, you're not going forward, you won't, because you've put in a good HR platform. Then going forward, you're going to have that data in the HR platform. It's going to be securely stored but readily available, and so on. So that was an interesting conversation. I got to tell you, really interesting conversation.
Yeah, and just kind of a caveat to that, anything that's on paper, other people could have access to. But if it's inside of a solution where there's proper security roles and access is limited based on those roles that an employee performs, then those things that need to remain secret or HR confidential get to remain HR confidential. A piece of paper, somebody leaves a filing cabinet open, somebody leaves an office door open, anybody can go in and rummage through those and find information. And there you are again having a GDPR compliance issue and people get in trouble and organizations get penalized financially or legally because of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Huge issues around the whole security of it. Yeah, who's got access? Where is it? Where's it gone?
Yeah. I mean, just losing that document can also be an absolute challenge, right? Yeah.
Really. Okay. So to our point then, let's move on and let's talk about now. Well, there we go. 96% of HR departments are not paperless. Now, okay, I think there's degrees of paperless, isn't there? And I remember.
Ian, I don't think your slide changed.
Okay. Let me. Okay. So, let me.
There.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for spotting that. Yeah, so here's a stat that you pulled out for us. 96% of HR departments not paperless. Now, I think there's degrees of paperless, aren't there? And some people think that if they put some things in place, it's paperless. And I remember you told me an anecdote the other day about when you were in the armed forces and going paperless reduced the pile of paper for an application from about 4 inches down to 3 inches. Only because you filled out the paperwork on a computer and then you went and printed it. So that was paperless, surely. No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. Yeah, I remember it actually. I mean, this was years ago, right? And back in those days in recruiting, we did all of our, applications and applicant packets and documentation all completely with the big folder and 5,000 sheets of paper, and everything was filled out manually. Obviously, it sounds like I'm kind of aging myself here, but and I remember management told us, hey, we're going to go paperless, and I was super excited about that because how much easier is it to get a packet electronically to somebody as opposed to putting it in the mail or whatever it may be. And their idea of paperless wasn't literally paperless. It was that we would now fill in this application on our computers and then hit print. So yeah, like you mentioned, it went from a 4-inch thick envelope of documents to a 3-inch thick envelope of documents. So yeah, the other side of it, and sometimes we don't think about these things, is if we're filling out packets that are that thick, or we have employee files that are that thick, it's also not ideal for the environment, right? I mean, looking forward, and I know we're talking about an HR solution, but it's also important to be as conscious as possibly can, and corporate responsibility and those sorts of things, to move to a greener, maybe carbon neutral environment within our organizations. And for sure, printing off 500 pages of something for one employee times 1,000 employees is definitely not helping that scenario.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think that I have to say, I think the printer manufacturers are responsible for that, because I know years ago, when people talk about the paperless office, and the printer companies said, we have to make sure that the time from clicking Control P to the laser printer starting up has to be less than a second. Because what happens then is people feel comfortable about going, I'll just take a copy of that, Control P, and the machine starts to whir, and they can grab the document off the top of the printer, put it in a file somewhere, and then lose it. But they feel they've got something. And and we still are talking to customers now about saying, do you know what? Get over it. The information's there. Let me show it to you. So yeah, I think the whole paperless office thing. Excellent. Okay. So what I look at now is the actual administration, and I think this is just building on what we just said just now. So this is about how if we focus on the employee as the most important asset a company can have, then what do we need to have there? And as you say here, we're going to look at this in a minute. The digital personal file. This is your company's record about that employee, about everything about that employee. But then who's got access to it? What layers of people got access to, and so on. And we're back to security and layering that on top. But also this thing about everything in one place. So I had a really interesting conversation this morning actually with a customer who wants to put in a learning management system, and that was going to be separate to their HR platform. You go, no, that's ridiculous. The LMS, the learning management system, is supportive of your HR, because you want to know what people are doing in terms of training and requirements in their induction to make them efficient and safe and compliant, their annual updates to make sure they're current, but also then their personal development to make sure they progress as an employee. And you can't have that standalone. Bring it all together. So that kind of builds on that, everything in one system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you'll see this, I think, a little bit in our solution when we move to the demo phase of this session, is everything needs to be employee centric. And when I say employee centric, everything is going to be accessed for management, HR, HR employees, and that particular employee and their supervisor from their employee digital file. So it's super key to have this administration being a working, functioning thing that you can base everything off of, because the employee is the key person in this solution. And being able to have that employee digital file, being able to, like you mentioned, track certain trainings that they have to have, or even certifications. I mean, if you think of a trucking organization that does distribution, there's only going to be so many of those truck drivers that are licensed to maybe haul certain materials or hazmat or what have you. And every year they have to have maybe a medical check, or they have to have some type of certification. And if that expires because the notification was on a piece of paper somewhere, then the organization loses money. The employee potentially loses money because he's not up to date and has to take time off to get those certifications up to date. And that's just a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the compliancy thing is a big element to this. Again, talking to a customer who they actually manage offshore platforms and offshore survey vessels for the oil and gas industry. And of course, you've got things there like the ship captain's medical guide or the first aid at sea certificates. They have to be current. Otherwise, you're non-compliant as a ship, and you don't want to stop a ship operating for a day. And so also, you just don't want to do that. But also, it's about you know, if you're in the workplace ashore and somebody's certificate runs, they go, right, tomorrow morning, go to the training company and just get certificated. You can't do that when the ship's in the middle of the the Gulf or something like that. You know, they're not accessible. You have to know that beforehand, so you can plan that training. Lots of people are shore based when they're on leave. So yeah, a big issue. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So let's move on, and let's move on. Move on to the slide, and so clearly, go on in. Let's move on to that recruiting. Right. I think what we're looking at here, if I can just get my yeah, right.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, never going to catch on. Right, I think we've come to paperwork. Actually, recruiting actually is a big issue because more and more these days we have to look at the ability to take people on, and that includes things like permits to work, validated driving licenses, certifications, so a lot of stuff we just talked about. But if we, you know, again, what we need to look at here is be able to bring that information in a digital format, so we've got it up front. We're saving a huge amount of admin by asking recruits to send stuff in the post. No. Yeah, let's manage that digitally, and also using the platform so they can see that they have submitted that information. We've received it. Everything's moving forward. So they feel already that there's a good organisation here taking care of their recruitment process. Now, you've had more experience with recruitment than any of us on this call, Jason. I know. So,
yeah.
Give us some insights here, man. Give us some insights.
Yeah, no. Yeah, obviously recruiting and my HR background is definitely the bigger part, right? But I think that the HR administration process really starts with recruiting. You know, there were days of old where you would recruit somebody and then give them a piece of paper or several pieces of paper and say, here, fill this out. We need your master data. Well, of course, that applicant or new hire looks at you and says, hey, I've already given you this in my CV. I've given you this in other documents. But okay, yeah, let me go home, print this out, and I'll mail it back to you or scan it in and send it to you in an email. I think it's really important that the data you're collecting from an applicant during the application process is converted to an employee. And then within the solution, maybe we send out a link for them to put in some additional information so all master data is completely updated, right? But it needs to be digital because it's so time consuming and people make mistakes, right? You know, John went from John to Johnny in the system, but that's just not reality. So yeah, this is absolutely recruiting is the point where it starts, and administration is going to really kick in after this person's recruited, when they're in the onboarding process, the documentations that we've gathered, birth certificates, passports, whatever, these things all need to shift over to the employee digital file.
Yeah, I think also in the what's the phrase, the war for talent. I think, the perception of a business is in that initial engagement that an applicant is trying to get their application pushed through. If that isn't seen to be slick and professional, it actually is the first contact that a recruit has with a company, and it can actually tinge their view on that organisation. And I've spoken to a couple of people who are going through, been through the recruitment process recently, and literally it's like, what's my perception of the company? Well, they're pretty cool, they're pretty hot, and they're on this case. And also at the point where you make the offer, there's still a battle to be won about making sure that recruit actually comes through the door. Now, when I say come through the door these days, I don't necessarily mean physically come through the door, but starts their first day at work. So I think there's an important piece then in that onboarding process. We've made the offer to the recruit. Now let's have that continuous conversation with them and make sure that they know who that line manager is, and that line manager's reached out to them, that they've got all their documents in place, that they know when the laptop's turning up, when the mobile phones are turning up, maybe that they know what their courses they need to do in the first 3 months, what have you. So they feel part of the organisation from that point of offer, but also that they come through the door pretty tooled up to actually become an effective member of the team very early on. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the administration piece of any HR management solution is designed for. From that very new employee, how fast can this employee get onboarded, become productive, feel like a part of the organization? We've all been through it. We've been new hires in various companies, and you're just excited to get going. I want to benefit the company, right? I want to earn my pay. And if you're busy doing paperwork and manual processes, that slows things down. The onboarding process, if you're paper based, could take months upon months. And if you're using an automated process, we're cutting months down to weeks. And that's the idea. Let's get our people up and running. Let's keep them excited. That way it reduces churn within the organization, all of those things. And the slide that you have right now, talent management and assigning goals and being able to have conversations with these employees, and the employee being able to go back and see, hey, this is where I'm at, and these are the things that I need to do to get all of the blocks green as opposed to yellow or red or whatever. That's a motivator for them.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I moved that on early just to make sure I could do
it. Yeah, no worries.
But it tailors in nicely, and well done there, Jason. Yeah, I think, as you say, once we got somebody in the door, they want to know where next for them. What have they got to do to be more effective? Because particularly young people these days, it's not just about the terms and conditions. It's also about them as a person, how they feel they are developing, and they are producing, and they are being part of the organisation. And that's a multifaceted element. But as an organisation, you need to understand what talent you've got and how that might develop. We were talking to a really large government organisation recently, and their main concern was they didn't know what skills they had in the organisation. They didn't know. They knew they had some very talented people, but they didn't know. So there's two problems there. One is that they weren't utilising those skills, so the individuals didn't necessarily feel valued. But also, when they wanted to put together a project team to do a specific project, they didn't know. They had to literally go out and email people and say, "Hey, any of you guys got these talents?" Whereas if they had that skill mapping done, they could very quickly use the platform to actually do an analysis of who's available across either internal and or external people that apply to them, to put together the best team to do that, to deliver that project. So really fascinating, both sides of the equation, from an employee perspective, but also from an organisation perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then of course we get down to what very often is the first question people ask us is, yeah, but can I do reports? Yeah, of course you do reports. But the important thing is, if you don't get the information in, there's no information to come out. So that's around that data. But I think as we both know, what we try to encourage customers to do here is look at using the dashboards, because that is live data. Tend to always get asked two questions: can you export things to Excel, and can you produce type output reports? Yes, you can. Subsequent questions that is, but why? Use the live data. It is live data. Use the dashboards in board meetings. Use the dashboards in HR strategy meetings. It is real live data, not a snapshot in time. Also, as soon as you take that data out, if it's HR, question: where's that data going? Should it be moving about, or should it be maintained within the secure platform, as we've talked about before? But also, it's live, it's secure, and you can drill into it. I'm sure we've all been to those meetings where you think you've done your homework, you've got the PowerPoint set up, you've got the reports, you hand those out, and then somebody says, "What about so and so? Can I get back to you with that?" Nice. Whereas you talk about live data, you can drill straight into it and see what's going on there.
Yeah.
So,
no, the dashboards that we incorporate in our solution are really key. And like you mentioned, there's nothing wrong with using them in a board meeting, in a management discussion, even an employee to a supervisor discussion, right? These are exactly what they're designed for. And I think I may have mentioned in a past session that HR unfortunately ends up being a very reporting heavy department, right? I mean, there's certain reports that need to be out into other organizations, and there's reports that need to go to management, all of these different things. Reality of it is boom, you pull up the dashboard, you expand that particular chart, and you can walk through it and talk about it, and it's real live data. You don't have to wait for something to sync up. You don't have to wait for somebody to type something in. It's there, it's available. It could change tomorrow. And if you're building a spreadsheet, or if you're building some type of report, as soon as you've got it done, it's already changed, because live data is happening in real time and reports are created in time. Yeah. And like you mentioned, it's just a snapshot. But I want to be able to see and make a decision based on what's reality and not what happened a week ago. I mean, you could have hired 10 new employees in a week, or you could have lost 10 new employees. It really depends. So, it's important for a manager to be able to make decisions based on what's reality now when I need to make this decision.
Clearly, there are times when you have to produce those reports for things like health and safety reporting,
Sure.
or equal opportunities and what have you. That's fine. But again, that's the advantage of doing that out of the platform, is that you can make sure those reports are just reporting what they need to report, and you're not bringing any personal data in there, which again can spread outside the system, and so on. So I understand that, but absolutely to your point, Jason, this should all be about live data. Okay, well let's go and have a look at a platform, shall we? So here we are. There we go. So let's start with dashboards. So here we've got initially the human development dashboard. This is just one of many out of the box dashboards, as you can see here. And we'll look at a few more in a moment. But here we've got so this is reviews. This is about individual personal reviews, and we can see that, make sure that everyone is actually maintaining these views, maintaining these records, what have you. But this is live data, as you said, and of course we can drill into that, into the actual records, and because these are interactive. This is exactly the point I was making before, which was like, okay, well, let's say you're having an HR review, and you're going, well, hang on a minute, this department here, what do you mean you've met no target? Okay, well, what's that about? You can drill into that then and see what the targets are that have not been looked at, and start chasing who should be managing these employees, and why that's not happening. So exactly addressing the point you were making earlier on. But I want to look at this type of dashboard now. This is an HR deadline dashboard, where the idea is you try to make all these tiles read 0.
Yeah.
That means you're up to date. Okay, as you come in the morning, what's going on? So here we've got a leave request. Fine, that's probably just coming overnight. That's somebody sat on their sofa looking to book a holiday, and because they can do that on their phone, they're looking at the brochure, or they're looking at the online website for the holiday company. They're looking at who else in their teams available to cover for them. Yes, that looks like it would work. Brilliant. I'll bang in a leave request. That can be done from their sofa in front of the laptop.
Yeah, and the other thing, right, is each person in an HR department is going to have a certain set of things that they're absolutely responsible for. And so if, like, the leave managements, the sicks, the absences, or what have you, are the things that are important, those are the things that you're responsible for, you can set that dashboard as a default. So as soon as you open up your platform, this is the absolute first thing that you see. And you don't have to go fishing for it. You don't have to go looking for it, whatever it may be. It's right there for you. And then you can just start doing your daily business by maybe switching it, like Ian just did here, to the stream view. That way you know exactly who it is. You can dive into it. You can do all of those things right from there, completely interactive, until you've got the beautiful thing of no data available because there aren't any. So your end goal is, let me see how many of these tiles I can get to 0 by the end of the day, week, whatever it may be. But this also is one of those places where we can see, is that truck driver with the hazardous material certification, is his stuff about to expire or her stuff about to expire? And it pings me and lets me know, so I can tell him or her maybe in advance, 3 months, hey, you need to sign up for this training, or you need to go get this this medical checkup to remain compliant. And this really helps miss deadlines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, another version of the same thing, really, but this is very much around HR requests. So these are requests coming in where again, you can, this is where employees request an interview or a review or whatever. And this can come into here, and again, you can maintain those. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and this gives that quicker turnaround, right? I mean, I think we talked about it in a different session, but if an employee has to leave what they're doing for their job to come check on things like this, if they don't have access to a computer or whatever they're doing at their particular organization, that's just time wasters. And if they know that they can submit a request to HR from within the system, hey, my leave's messed up, it looks like I'm missing a day, can you check on that? It'll also provide feedback back to that employee saying, hey, this is done, I checked it, whatever. And then they can go back into their record and say, okay, cool, I've got that day back, or it's been explained why there's a discrepancy. And that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it's important. Our feedback is important, but as you say, it happens wherever you are. I've answered leave requests from my phone when I've been out and about, because I get a call, I get an email from the platform saying, she asked for a day's leave. Yeah, fine, okay, I see no problem with that. Approved. So it's happened very instantly from wherever. Really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's we're now looking at the organisational dashboard, and this is starting to sort of pull back from the front line a little bit. But this is this is where we've got a global organisation. We can start looking at some real impact on the organisation. So here we've got the number of active employees. So again, your FTE count, what have you, which is so important to larger corps. They can make sure that's within bounds, but also then the active leave summaries. Because I don't know about where you are, but now we have to actually put over any outstanding leave on our balance sheets in the UK. This is now seen as an accounting requirement, not just an HR requirement. So, but I think from taking away the financial element out of that, I think we're all conscious to make sure that staff take leave these days, particularly with this whole working from home scenario and what have you. They need to shut down and shut off and come back refreshed. So that's this gives you the ability to make sure that people are consuming their leave, and therefore are in a much more better situation for their employee. So if we then come into I want to dive now actually into employees. So here we've got some active employees, and I want to go into actually have a look at someone that I know a few information bits on him. So let's have a look at Paul Morrison. And the reason I'm going into here is again to the point we made about who can see what. So this is Paul Morrison's digital personal file. And as we know, this is only visible by those who are HR managers. These are people that have the ability to create FTEs, to appoint job profiles and salaries, enable leave entitlements and so on. It's a very top level. So therefore, these people can see everything, and there is an awful lot of data in here that they can see, and so on. However, we have different views. So we have the supervisor view and the self-service view. So the supervisor is for those line managers, and this is really about empowering line managers, team leaders to really manage their teams and to make sure that they are, for example, looking at the reviews, HR requests at a line manager level. Okay, they may have to escalate it to an HR manager at some stage, but hopefully they are empowered to really deliver on those HR requests. Can I speak to you about an issue I've got? Can I speak to you? I need some special leave. I'll need to come and talk to you about that because I can't book special leave on my self-service. But I have a challenge at home or childcare, whatever the situation might be. Can I book that? So that's that line pushing that authority and responsibility down to line management to manage their employees at that level. Something I'm really keen on, and I've always promoted in my organisations, is line managers should line manage, and that brings them closer to their teams and gives them a better understanding of the shape of their team and how that's managed. But therefore, they have a different view of the data of their team. And then, of course, you actually get then down to the self-service view, which is very much around, you'll probably put it on here, but very much around what the individual can see around their and update themselves. I think an interesting point you picked up on when we were having a chat the other day, actually, though, Jason, was the audit approach and the ability to actually see what fields have been changed by who over a period of time, so that you can always go back. There's so much issue around audit around HR, isn't there? Do you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, Ian, as you made point, right? It's based on who can access what, and if you would just go back to Paul's view as an employee in that last tab that you have open. Yeah, so from an HR perspective, you can see these are the things that Paul has access to. These are the things that Paul needs to have access to, right? His leave, his absences, his time and attendance, skills, education, all of those things. And these are the things that he can affect and things that he can change. What we don't want is the Wild West scenario of Paul being able to go in there and give himself a promotion. So there's no need for him to be, accessing or updating his wages, his contracts, those sorts of things, because those are HR and management topics. But for sure, if Paul decides to move down the street or buy a house or change his address, his bank account, those are things we want him to be able to do on his own. And Ian, if you click on that data change button right there, this is a audit history, so to speak. This is me as an HR person being able to come in and see what changes have been made to these employee digital files and by who and for what reason. That way, if Paul comes to me with an HR request and says, "Hey, I didn't get paid, last month. What happened?" And then we go into his record and we see that he changed his bank account and he typed in the wrong numbers or the wrong account number or what have you, we can track that back down. Or, if you're getting audited by an external agency, you can literally just, if we have to, print this out, or not print this out, download this into an Excel file and give it to the auditing agency so they would be able to see who changed what and why. Yeah, and these are definitely things as part of administration that absolutely need to be cleared off.
Brilliant. All right, well, Jason, I think, look, great talking to you as always, but I think we've used up more than our time allocated. I know Katie will be publishing this up onto our YouTube channel and making it available through various different channels. But Jason, as always, great pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing your time with us. I will now try and attempt to bring the closing slide up, which will show there we go, which will show how to contact us. So please check out the Dynamics HR Management website. Check us out at cloud2020.co.uk. You can contact us through Twitter and LinkedIn, and also check out the previous webinars. But Jason, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for your insights, really valuable stuff. And hopefully we've managed to convey to our audience how good administration in HR is going to support the employees, support management, help with reporting, and support compliancy wholeheartedly. Great.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate the invite. As always, a pleasure to take part. Yeah, look forward to maybe our next one.
Brilliant. Jason, thanks as always.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ian.
Thanks.